"Help me, she is not my mother," whispered the girl to the police officer, and when the man saw the woman's face, he turned completely pale. Train stations are strange places. They seem like stages where life intersects and parts in a matter of seconds. No one really pays much attention to the faces of others. No one cares about the fate of the stranger next to them. But that night at a random station, among the hustle and bustle of hurried passengers and the metallic sound of wheels on tracks, a little girl was about to do something that would change her destiny forever. Sophia had her eyes wide open and her breathing was erratic. Her trembling little hand clung tightly to the sleeve of the policeman who was on guard at the platform. Andrew, a man in his 40s, seasoned in his work and accustomed to dealing with all kinds of people at the station, felt the sudden tug and looked down. "Sir, please help me," said the girl with a muffled voice, as if she was struggling to hold back tears. "That woman, she's not my mom." The words hung in the air like a silent accusation that no one seemed to have heard. Andrew looked at the little girl, at her tousled hair, at her eyes full of panic. Then, with the serenity of someone who has heard too many stories in his life, he tried to sketch a reassuring smile. "What do you mean she's not your mom?" he asked patiently, not taking his hands out of his pockets. "Where's your real mom?" The girl swallowed hard and looked over her shoulder again. A few meters away, a middle-aged woman stood next to a suitcase with a tense expression, her lips pressed together. She wore a dark coat and her posture seemed too rigid, as if she was waiting for something, as if she was watching. "I don't know," whispered Sophia. "A few minutes ago she was here, but she's not my mom." Andrew narrowed his eyes, carefully assessing the situation. It wasn't the first time he had seen a frightened child at the station. Often, these were cases of confusion, lost children, distracted parents. But the way Sophia spoke, the desperation in her voice, sent a chill through him that he couldn't ignore. The woman raised her head, and as soon as she noticed that the policeman was looking in her direction, she walked towards them with quick, firm steps. "Sophia, come here," she said, extending her hand with an impatient gesture. "Don't bother the officer." Andrew noticed that her voice was too dry, too rehearsed. Sophia didn't move. "She's not my mom," whispered the girl again and squeezed the sleeve of the uniform tighter. The woman smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "Excuse her, officer," she said with a forced laugh. "She's been nervous all day. She gets scared easily." Andrew crossed his arms. There was something about the scene that didn't fit. The woman showed not a hint of tenderness towards the girl, no attempt to calm her, not a word of consolation. "Can you show me some form of identification?" he asked in a casual tone, but alert to any reaction. The woman blinked twice before responding. "Is it necessary?" "She's just a scared little girl. If there's nothing odd, there's no problem showing it, right?" Andrew replied, keeping his calm. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a document that she extended with almost a mechanical movement. Andrew took it and inspected it carefully. The name matched the girl's mother's, but something about the photo, something about the look in that woman's face in the picture, was not what he expected. Andrew's instinct flared up like an alarm. "Sophia," he said, squatting down a bit to be at her level, "tell me the truth. How long ago did you see your mom?" The girl hesitated. "We got off the train together. Then she went to buy me a juice. She asked me to wait here, but she didn't come back." Andrew turned his gaze back to the woman who, with a forced expression, tried to force a laugh. "I told you she's been nervous. She gets scared over anything." But Andrew saw something in her face. A shadow of anxiety that she tried to disguise with indifference. "Could you accompany us to the security office? It's just to clear everything up." The woman let out a sigh, visibly annoyed. "Do we really need to? We're in a hurry. If everything's in order, it won't take long," Andrew replied firmly. The woman hesitated for a moment. Her eyes scanned the hallway, as if measuring her options, as if looking for a way out. Andrew knew that look. It was the look of someone considering fleeing. Sophia felt the tension growing around her. She clung even tighter to the sleeve of the policeman, her only lifeline at that moment. The woman clicked her tongue and, suddenly, in a quick movement, pulled on Sophia's hand. "We're leaving." But the girl struggled. "I don't want to go with you. You're not my mom." Sophia's cry made some people around turn their heads. "Sophia, be quiet." "No, I don't want to." Andrew reacted immediately, grabbing the woman's wrist before she could drag the girl away. "Ma'am, your attitude isn't helping." The woman's eyes darkened, and something she hadn't shown before appeared on her face. A contained fury, cold and calculating. "You have no right to detain me." "I'm not detaining you, just making sure everything is okay. If the girl is mistaken, you have nothing to fear." The woman didn't respond. At that moment, another policeman, Camillo, approached after having seen the commotion. "Any problems, Andrew?" Andrew didn't take his eyes off the woman. "Not sure yet." Sophia took advantage of the distraction to back away 2 steps. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. "Please believe me. She's not my mom. She did something with my real mom." The girl's words fell like a weight in the air. Some people at the station were already watching cautiously. The woman pursed her lips. "This is ridiculous." Andrew noticed her hand trembling slightly. "Please accompany us to the office." A tense silence took over the place. The woman didn't move. "I'm not going anywhere." Camillo, seeing the tension on Andrew's face, strategically positioned himself to block any attempt at escape. Andrew knew he had to act quickly. "Then we'll wait here. We're reviewing the security cameras. In a few minutes, we'll be able to see what really happened." The woman's expression hardened. And then it happened. She dropped the suitcase and took off running. Andrew reacted immediately, launching himself after her. Camillo picked up Sophia to prevent her from running after the scene. "Catch her." The station erupted into chaos. People moved aside as Andrew chased the woman through the hallways. The sound of their footsteps echoed loudly on the floor. Sophia, with her heart racing, watched the scene with eyes full of tears. She knew something terrible had happened. She knew her mom was in danger, and she wouldn't stop until she found her. The night's chills seeped through the train station's glass, wrapping Sophia in a shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature. Her legs trembled, but she couldn't tell if it was from fear or the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Andres held her firmly, while his colleague Camillo watched the entrance through which the woman had vanished. "Did they catch that lady?" Sophia asked, her voice shaky. Andres took a few seconds to respond. "Not yet, but we will." The girl felt a lump in her throat. She knew something terrible had happened. Her mother would never have left her alone at a station. Not without telling her where she was going. Not without warning. And then, she remembered her dad's cell phone. She shook her head frantically, searching through the pockets of her jacket with her small hands. Her father. Her dad needed to know what had happened. Camillo looked at her, puzzled. "What are you looking for?" Sophia could barely respond. "My phone." Her fingers hurt from how tightly she was clutching the fabric of her coat. When she finally found it, she dialed her dad's number with trembling hands. It rang once, twice. "Hello?" Hernando's voice sounded impatient, as if he were in the middle of something important. Sophia felt a momentary relief at hearing him, but her heart was pounding so fast that words stuck in her throat. "Dad." Hernando immediately sensed the tone of his daughter. Something was not right. "Sophia, what's happening? Where are you?" Tears filled the girl's eyes. Mom disappeared. A lady wanted to take me with her, but it wasn't Mom." On the other side of the line, Hernando felt his blood drain from his body. "What?" "Mom disappeared," Sophia repeated, sobbing. "A woman said she was her, but it wasn't her." The silence on the phone felt eternal. "Where are you now?" Hernando asked, his voice more tense than usual. "At the train station. A police officer is helping me." Hernando could barely process the words. His breathing quickened, and he stood up abruptly from his chair. I'm on my way. The call ended. On the other hand, Mariana couldn't feel her body. There was something sticky and cold on her forehead. She tried to move, but a stabbing pain shot through her head, forcing her to remain still. Her vision was blurry, and the air smelled of dampness and metal. She blinked several times, trying to figure out where she was. The last image she had in her mind was the station. She had gone to buy a juice for Sophia. Then, her heart began to pound fiercely within her chest. Someone had pushed her. No, someone had grabbed her from behind. She felt the cold of rough hands on her neck, a sudden pressure, a lack of air. A noise snapped her out of her thoughts. It was a dry, measured sound. Footsteps. The door creaked. Mariana held her breath. A shadow appeared in the doorway. You woke up faster than I thought. The voice was hers. Mariana opened her eyes fully and for a moment thought she was hallucinating. The woman looking at her was identical to her. The same face, the same eyes, the same body. But it was not her. The other smiled. I see you've realized. Mariana felt her stomach churn. Who are you? The woman tilted her head, as if calmly considering the question. Someone who should have existed a long time ago. Mariana tried to move, but her body did not respond. Her wrists were tied. What do you want from me? The other woman walked calmly around the room, as if she owned the place. Your life. Mariana felt the world tilt around her. You're crazy. The other woman laughed. That's what everyone says about me. But I'm not the crazy one, Mariana. The crazy one was my mother. Your mother. The air grew thick. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Because you had a wonderful life, didn't you? A family, a husband, a daughter, a home. The other woman leaned in close to Mariana, so close she could feel her breath against her skin. I had none of that. Mariana was speechless. The others stood up straight. Ever wonder how it's possible we're here, looking at each other as if we were the same person? Mariana had indeed thought about it. Too much. Her mother. The story of her family. The buried secrets. The truth they never told her. The other smiled, as if she could read her mind. Yes, Mariana. I am your sister. Mariana felt the air escape her lungs. Hernando arrived at the train station, his chest ready to burst. From a distance, he saw Sophia sitting on a bench with a police officer by her side. He ran towards her. Sophia. The girl lifted her head and, seeing him, threw herself into his arms. Hernando hugged her with all his might. Dad. The police officer, Andres, cleared his throat. Mr. Restrepo, I think it's best we talk. Hernando looked at him, his brow furrowed. What happened? Where's my wife? Andres exchanged a glance with his colleague Camilo. That's the question. Hernando felt something inside him break. What do you mean that's the question? Andres sighed. Your wife disappeared at the station. Your daughter was with her. At some point, Mrs. Mariana stepped aside to buy something and never returned. In her place, a woman claiming to be your wife appeared. Hernando felt his skin crawl. Where's that woman? Andres crossed his arms. She fled when we tried to detain her. The silence grew heavier. Did you catch her? Andres shook his head. Hernando felt a knot in his stomach. What did she look like? Camilla was the one who answered. She was identical to your wife. The words hit him like a punch in the chest. What are you saying? That the woman who tried to take your daughter physically resembles Mariana. Hernando felt his world turn upside down. Sophia clung to his jacket. Dad, I swear it wasn't her. Hernando didn't know how to respond. The world around him was crumbling, and he had no idea what to do. Hernando felt his reality crumbling with each minute that passed without news from Mariana. His breathing was erratic, his hands trembled, and his mind filled with terrifying images. Sophia clung to his arms so tightly that her small fingers dug into the fabric of his jacket. The train station, lit by cold, artificial lights, now seemed like a hostile stage, as if it hid the secrets he desperately tried to unravel. Andres, the police officer who had been with his daughter, took him to the security room of the station. He gestured to his colleague Camilo to start playing the video captured by the cameras. The screen flickered a couple of times before showing blurry images, but what was visible was clear. Mariana, his wife, walked calmly to a drink stall. Seconds later, a figure emerged from the crowd. It was a woman of the same height, with the same build, with the same face. Hernando leaned toward the screen, frowning. He saw the woman approach Mariana, noticed how she whispered something into her ear, how his wife turned her head with a look of confusion. Then, he saw the exact moment Mariana was pushed toward a camera-free area. The identical figure to her then walked calmly towards the direction where Sophia was waiting. There were no signs of struggle in the image, only a calculated, clean movement, as if it had been planned for years. Hernando's stomach twisted. "Who is she?" His voice came out choppy, but laden with contained fury. Andres crossed his arms and looked at the screen in silence before responding. "That's what we're trying to figure out." Days later, fear had a bitter taste. Hernando tasted it for 2 whole days, each time his cell phone vibrated with a call that never brought good news. He spent sleepless nights, pacing back and forth, reviewing the security cameras over and over, trying to find a pattern, a clue, something that would tell him where his wife was. But time kept moving forward, and Mariana did not appear. The police had combed the train station, checked the surroundings, interrogated witnesses, but everything seemed like a shapeless shadow. There was no trace of his wife. Sophia clung to him as if she feared he might also disappear. The girl did not want to sleep alone, barely spoke, and when she did, she always repeated the same thing. "Daddy, Mom wouldn't leave without me." Hernando knew. But then, on the night of the second day, the door to the house opened. Hernando was sitting in the living room, his head buried in his hands, when he heard the sound of the doorknob turning. He stood up abruptly, his heart in a knot. Sophia, who was on the stairs, also turned toward the door. And then she appeared. Mariana. Or at least it seemed to be. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes wrinkled. She had deep under-eye circles and her expression was dim. But there she was. "Mariana?" Hernando's voice was barely a whisper. Sophia froze. The woman on the threshold looked up and smiled. "I'm home." Hernando couldn't believe it. He approached her and grabbed her by the shoulders, mixing relief and confusion. "Where have you been? What happened? We've been looking everywhere for you." Mariana looked down and bit her lip as if trying to find the right words. I don't really know. I woke up in a place I didn't recognize. I had been drugged. I don't remember how I got there. I just know I walked until I found a way back." Sophia didn't move. Her little eyes looked at the woman with a bewilderment Hernando didn't notice. "Mom," the girl whispered. The woman looked up and opened her arms. "My love." Sophia didn't run towards her. Hernando didn't notice that either. He hugged his wife tightly, feeling that the nightmare had finally ended. "God, I thought I had lost you." Mariana slowly caressed his back. "I thought so too." But Sophia remained motionless. Something wasn't right. Hours later, when Sophia was alone in her room, she curled up against the wall. She couldn't explain it in words, but she felt it. That wasn't her mom. They looked alike, talked alike, but their gaze wasn't the same. Her mom always looked at her with tenderness, always made her feel safe. That woman looked at her as if she was waiting for something. Sophia didn't sleep that night. Hernando sat on the bed, watching his wife with concern. You have no idea how worried we were. Mariana, or the woman pretending to be her, averted her gaze. I know. The police are still investigating. They say the woman who tried to take Sophia looks just like you. The woman swallowed hard. That doesn't make sense. Hernando rubbed his face with both hands. It also doesn't make sense that you disappeared for 2 days and don't remember anything. She looked at him intently. Don't you trust me? Hernando felt guilty instantly. Of course, I do. It's just that this is all so crazy. Mariana smiled slightly and placed a hand on his. I'm here now. That's what matters. Hernando watched her in silence. There was something about her touch that felt strange. Sophia decided she couldn't sit still. If the adults couldn't see the truth, she would find it. That woman was not her mom. But where was the real one? She quietly left her room and walked down the hallway. She knew her dad was in his room with that woman. She knew she had to be quiet. She headed to the study, where her dad kept important papers. She opened the drawers, looking for something, anything that might give her a clue. And then she found the box. It was an old wooden box with photos inside. Sophia picked one up and her heart stopped. There were 2 babies. 2. And her grandmother Gladys holding them in her arms. Sophia had never seen that photo. She had never been told her mom had a sister. But there was the proof. In the bedroom, the woman pretending to be Mariana got up from the bed and walked to the mirror. She studied herself carefully. They never thought of me, she whispered. She laid her hand on her reflection. But now they will. Diana had waited her entire life for this moment. She had been Mariana's shadow, the unwanted daughter, the leftover one. But now everything belonged to her. Sophia quickly closed the box and clutched it to her chest. She had to tell her dad. She had to do it before it was too late. Elsewhere in the city, the darkness weighed heavily on her chest. Each time she tried to move, pain forced her to stop. Mariana felt her wrists burning. The rope tightened to the point of cutting off circulation. Her mouth was dry, her head throbbed. The air in the room was thick, as if it was slowly suffocating her. She did not know how long she had been there. The last thing she remembered was the train station. The sound of people, the murmur of voices, the metallic smell of the damp rail. Then, a shadow, pressure on her neck, the world spinning and fading around her. And now, here she was, in a windowless room, in a corner where no one seemed to remember her. But someone did remember. The door creaked. Mariana held her breath. Heels clicked against the concrete floor, a deliberate, confident sound, as if the person approaching relished every step she took. When the figure emerged from the shadows, Mariana shuddered. It was her. Or rather, someone who looked like her. Diana slightly tilted her head, a mocking smile on her lips. You look terrible, sister. Mariana swallowed hard. Her voice came out hoarse, broken. Who are you? Diana let out a low, almost amused laugh. Don't you understand yet? She crouched down to Mariana's level, her eyes gleaming in the dim light. I told you the other day I am you. Mariana looked away, her mind trying to process the situation. This is madness. Diana tilted her head, as if examining her. That's what our mother thought when she decided that only one of us deserved to live her life. Mariana looked up sharply. What did you say? Diana smiled bitterly. They never told you the truth, did they? You were raised as the perfect girl, with a family, with love, with everything they denied me. Mariana's heart pounded harder. Why are you doing this? Diana stood up with a sigh. Because it was always you. Always you. I didn't exist. Mariana felt a lump in her throat. Diana walked to the door and looked back one last time. But now, I am the one who has your life. Mariana struggled against her bonds in desperation as she watched her leave. She could not let this woman take over her family. Hernando watched Mariana from the doorway of the study. There was something strange about her. Since she had returned, her way of moving, speaking, looking at him was different. It was supposed that his wife had been missing, kidnapped, drugged according to her story. Yet, she did not seem scared, desperate, or traumatized. She had not hugged Sophia with the usual strength. She had not clung to him with the need of someone who had been trapped in hell. She was calm. Too calm. Are you all right? Mariana looked up from the papers she had on the desk. Yes, why? Hernando frowned. I don't know. You just seem different. Mariana smiled. I was kidnapped, Hernando. Maybe that changed me a bit. Hernando crossed his arms. Diana. His wife blinked. What? Diana. You said her name last night while you were sleeping. For a moment, he saw his wife tense up. I don't know what you're talking about. You shouted her name. Mariana looked away. Maybe it was a dream. Hernando felt a chill. Something was not right. Sophia watched her mother silently. It was not her. It could not be her. Every small gesture was proof. The coffee. Her mother never drank coffee at night. But this woman did. The bedtime stories. Mariana always remembered each story, every detail. But when Sophia asked for a story, her voice sounded hesitant, as if she was making it up as she went along. And the way she looked at her. There had always been warmth in her mother's gaze. But now, there was something else. Sophia couldn't put it into words, but she felt it on her skin. Then, she wanted to find answers. And she remembered the box she had found the day before. The photos inside the box told a story no one had ever told her. 2 babies. 2. And her grandmother Gladys holding them. Sophia had never seen that photo. No one had ever told her that her mother had a sister. But there was the proof. Sophia ran to her father's room. Dad. Hernando looked up from his cell phone, weary. What is it, Sophie? Sophia pressed the photo against her chest. Mom had a sister. Hernando frowned. What? The girl handed over the photo. Hernando took it and studied it carefully. His eyes scanned every detail. And then he saw it. 2 babies. Exactly alike. Hernando's stomach clenched. Where did you find this? Sophia whispered. In the study. Hernando looked at the photo again. 2 identical girls. 2. And only one grew up in their home. Meanwhile, Mariana felt her wrists burn from the friction of the rope. She had spent hours struggling, trying to untie the knot, ignoring the pain. She knew she couldn't stay there. Diana would completely replace her if she didn't escape. She took a deep breath and continued pulling at the rope, clenching her teeth to keep from screaming. The door suddenly swung open. Diana looked at her calmly. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Mariana froze. Diana sighed and slowly approached. You were always the perfect one. The one who deserved a good life. Mariana trembled with rage. It wasn't my decision. Diana smiled sadly. No, it was our mother's. Mariana felt the air grow heavy. Why did she do it? Diana leaned in close to her. Because there was only room for one. Mariana felt her stomach churn. Diana gently caressed her face. And now, there's only room for me. Mariana felt fear crawl over her skin. She had to get out. Or they would never find her alive. The air inside the room grew heavier with each passing moment. Mariana could feel her own ragged breathing, the uncontrolled beating of her heart hammering in her chest as she looked at her sister standing before her. Diana had that expression that was unbearably familiar, yet at the same time terrifying. The dim light from the bulb hanging from the ceiling cast shadows on her face, further accentuating the harshness in her features. "Now, there is only room for me," whispered Diana, without breaking eye contact. Mariana did not respond. Her mind was racing at a frenetic pace, trying to understand, trying to find a way out. Diana let out a sigh and knelt in front of her. "You look at me as if I'm the monster here. Are you not?" Mariana barely recognized her own voice, broken, trembling. Diana laughed. "Do you think this makes me the monster? Do you think taking away what was denied to me from the start makes me cruel? No, Mariana. The real villain has always been our mother." Mariana felt a chill run down her spine. Diana observed her carefully with a look of contempt, of contained fury. "You don't know what it's like to grow up being a mistake." Mariana narrowed her eyes. "A mistake?" That's what I was to her. To Gladys. A mistake that had to be corrected, that had to be buried somewhere where no one could remember it. Diana stood up and paced the room, as if reliving her childhood through every word she spoke. "She abandoned me. She left me in that orphanage as if I was worth nothing. As if I was just a nuisance in her perfect life. I knew nothing about this." Diana stopped and looked at her with disdain. "Of course you didn't. You were never told. Because you were the perfect child. The daughter who deserved to stay." Mariana felt the words cut her breath. Diana continued, her voice laden with resentment. "That place, that orphanage, it was a nightmare." Mariana felt her own tears beginning to accumulate in her eyes. "What did they do to you?" Diana smiled bitterly. "What didn't they do?" Mariana clenched her teeth. "Tell me." Diana tilted her head. "Do you want to hear? Do you want to know what made me become this?" Mariana nodded. Diana let out a bitter laugh before beginning. The orphanage had a damp smell that never went away. The walls were cracked, the windows always covered in dust. The beds were hard, with thin blankets that didn't protect from the cold. Diana learned early on that no one was coming to save her. The caretakers were not kind. They didn't care about the children who arrived there. To them, we were just mouths to feed and bodies to keep alive until they were old enough to be discarded. The nights were worse. Sometimes, the screams of the younger children filled the hallways. Sometimes, the sound of punishments echoed through the walls. Diana learned not to cry. She learned that if she didn't speak up, if she didn't complain, if she did exactly what they told her, she could avoid the worst punishments. But she never avoided the loneliness. No one visited her. No one inquired about her. One day, one of the caretakers told her the truth. "Your mother left you here because she didn't want you." Diana was 5 years old when she heard those words. She didn't understand their meaning at that moment. But she felt it. She felt it in the way they treated her. In the way that every year she saw some children get adopted while she remained there. Hatred began to grow inside her. "When I was 10, I discovered the truth," whispered Diana, her gaze lost. Mariana watched her, feeling a lump in her throat. "How did you find out?" "One day I overheard one of the workers talking. She said my mother had another daughter. A daughter identical to me." Mariana felt her world crumble. It was you." Diana let out an empty laugh. "The girl who truly deserved a family." Mariana felt the tears burning in her eyes. "Diana." "Don't call me that," Diana leaned in. "That's not my name. That was the name they gave me when they abandoned me." Mariana looked down. "I knew nothing." "Of course not." Diana stepped back and crossed her arms. "That's why I'm here." Mariana felt desperation suffocate her. "What are you going to do?" Diana smiled. "I'm going to teach our mother a lesson she'll never forget." Hernando looked at the photograph in his hands. The two identical babies stared back at him from the worn paper. His heart pounded in his chest. This can't be. Gladys sat across from him, her hands clasped in her lap. "Hernando." Hernando looked up, his expression hardened. What did you do? Gladys looked down. I couldn't keep both. Hernando felt rage course through him. They were your daughters. Gladys closed her eyes. I didn't know what else to do. Hernando stood up abruptly. So you decided to get rid of one? Gladys pressed her lips together. I thought I was giving her a good home. They didn't. Hernando slammed the table forcefully. You left her in hell. Gladys shivered. I had no choice. Hernando looked at her with scorn. There's always a choice. Gladys didn't respond. Hernando felt reality hit him like a moving train. Mariana had a sister. And now, that sister was in his house, impersonating her. Diana picked up a knife from the shelf and twirled it between her fingers. Soon, everything will be in its place. Mariana watched her, fear pulsing in her chest. She knew what was coming. She knew that if she didn't escape now, she never would. The rope binding her wrists was soaked with sweat and blood. Mariana felt each tug like blades tearing through her skin, but she had no other choice. The knot would give way sooner or later. She couldn't let her sister bury her in oblivion. She couldn't let Diana destroy everything she loved. The air inside the room was thick, tainted with the scent of fear and desperation. Her arms trembled, her fingers were numb, but she continued to strain against the bindings. The wood of the chair back creaked with each movement. Then she heard footsteps. Light, almost silent. But they were there. She held her breath. The door creaked open, and the light from the hallway illuminated her sister's silhouette. Diana was holding a kitchen knife, twirling it between her fingers as if it were an extension of her own body. Her expression was serene, even warm, but her eyes told a different story. I like watching you struggle, Diana whispered, tilting her head. It's fascinating. Mariana felt a chill run down her spine. Let me go. Diana chuckled softly. And why would I do that? Mariana clenched her jaw. You won't be able to replace me. Hernando will notice. Sophia will know. Diana tilted her head. Sophia, such a clever girl, isn't she? I've noticed how she looks at me, as if she's seeing a ghost. Mariana felt her chest tighten. Leave her out of this. Diana placed the tip of the knife on the table and slowly spun it. I can't do that, sister. It's too late. Terror dug into Mariana's stomach. What do you mean? Diana smiled. Sophia doesn't fit into my new life. Mariana struggled harder. Don't you dare touch her. Diana sighed, as if weary of the conversation. By tomorrow night, it will all be over. Sophia will just be a memory. Mariana felt her blood boil. Her daughter was in danger. She couldn't wait any longer. With one last desperate pull, she felt the rope slip from her wrists. Diana had no time to react. Mariana lunged at her with all the desperation of a cornered animal. The knife clattered to the floor with a metallic sound. The two women rolled over the dusty wood floor, hitting, scratching, grappling for control. Diana managed to break free and kicked Mariana in the stomach. Mariana fell back, the air knocked out of her lungs. Diana picked up the knife and smiled. That was entertaining. Mariana saw the blade gleam in the hallway light and knew she couldn't stay there. Diana lunged, but Mariana moved just in time. The blade embedded itself in the wall, stuck in the wood. Mariana didn't wait. She ran. Her legs barely responded. The pain in her ribs was unbearable, but she kept running. The emergency stairs were close. She pushed the door open and ran down the steps two at a time. The sound of Diana's heels echoed behind her. Mariana felt the cold air on her face as she emerged onto the street. She didn't know where she was, but she had to keep running. Hernando's phone vibrated on the table. Sophia slept on the couch, clutching a blanket. He picked up the phone without much enthusiasm, but as soon as he saw the sender, his heart stopped. It was Mariana, and the message had only 2 words. Come for me. The location was attached. Hernando leapt to his feet. Sophia blinked sleepily. Dad. Hernando covered her with the blanket. Don't move from here. Sophia rubbed her eyes. Mom? Hernando looked at the phone screen. I'm going to bring her back. He left the house without looking back. 2 hours later, Diana quietly closed the door to Sophia's room. The girl was sound asleep, her hair scattered across the pillow. Diana watched her in silence. Everything would have been easier if you had never been born. She slipped her hand into her pocket and pulled out a small glass vial. She leaned over the girl. You won't feel a thing. Sophia opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was the woman with the vial in her hand. Instinctively, she rolled off the bed and fell to the floor. Diana frowned. You don't have to make this difficult. Sophia crawled toward the door, but Diana grabbed her arm. The girl screamed with all her might. Diana covered her mouth. Silence. Sophia bit down hard. Diana released her with a cry of pain. The girl ran into the hallway, stumbling over her own feet. Dad. But Hernando was not there. Diana followed her, her eyes blazing with rage. Come back here. Sophia ran to the living room. She grabbed her father's phone and dialed the first number she found. Help! Diana caught up to her and snatched the phone away. Sophia struggled, but Diana lifted her up in her arms. That's enough. She carried her back to the room and locked the door. Stay there. Sophia banged on the door with all her strength. Let me go. You're not my mom. Diana smiled behind the door. Of course I am. Hernando drove like a madman. Mariana's message was still on the phone screen, the location marked on the map. He didn't understand how she had managed to send that message, but it didn't matter. She was alive. And he was going to bring her back. Mariana ran through the dark streets. The cold cut into her skin, but she didn't stop. Cars passed by her, oblivious to the wounded woman running for her life. Her bare feet sank into the icy pavement. A black car stopped in front of her. The door opened. Hernando looked at her, his heart in his throat. Mariana. She fell to her knees. Hernando rushed to support her. My God. Mariana could barely speak. Sophia. Hernando put her in the car. I'm going to take you home. Mariana gripped his arm tightly. No. Hernando looked at her, puzzled. Diana. Hernando's face tensed. What? Mariana breathed with difficulty. She's going to kill her. Hernando didn't ask any more questions. He floored the accelerator. Diana poured herself a glass of wine. The clock on the wall struck midnight. Everything was going as planned. Mariana had disappeared. Hernando was completely confused. And Sophia. Well, that would be resolved very soon. She sipped her wine and smiled. But then, she heard the sound of the door being flung open. And Hernando's shout echoed through the house. Diana. Diana closed her eyes in annoyance. She sighed and set the glass down on the table. The moment had come. Diana didn't rush. She didn't run or show surprise. She knew this moment would come sooner or later. Hernando had been slow to uncover the truth, but he wasn't a fool. She carefully set her wine glass on the table, as if she still had control of the situation. She turned around slowly, raising her chin with an expression of serenity. Well, Hernando, her voice was soft, almost amused. I wasn't expecting to see you so soon. Hernando didn't respond immediately. His breathing was heavy, his jaw clenched. Mariana stood beside him, leaning against the doorframe, her face pale and her lips cracked. The relief of seeing her alive was fleeting. Every muscle in his body was tense, rigid, as if his own skin was too tight. His gaze shifted from Mariana to Diana, and his chest clenched with rage. They were identical. Exactly the same. But now, he saw it clearly. Diana was not his wife. "Where's my daughter?" Hernando asked in a deep voice without moving. Diana sighed and shook her head. "How tragic, Hernando. After everything we've been through together, do you really think I would harm her?" Mariana clenched her fists. "Tell me now." Diana smiled slightly and nodded towards Sophia's bedroom door. "She's in there." Hernando moved forward, but Mariana grabbed his arm. "Be careful," she whispered, not taking her eyes off her sister. Hernando understood the warning. Diana was playing with them. "Open the door," Hernando demanded. Diana crossed her arms. "And if I don't want to? Then I'll kill you right here." Diana let out a laugh. "Well, Hernando, I didn't know you had that darkness inside you." Hernando stepped forward 2 more paces. "Don't test me." Diana shrugged and slid her hand into the pocket of her robe. Mariana tensed. Hernando caught the movement. "Don't do anything stupid, Diana." Diana's smile faded. "It's too late for that." Suddenly, she pulled a key from her pocket and tossed it across the room. Hernando rushed toward where it landed, but at that very moment, Diana pulled out a knife hidden in her robe and lunged at Mariana. The world seemed to move in slow motion. Mariana barely had time to react. She felt the blade graze her skin, the cold metal slicing through the fabric of her clothes. But at the last second, she dodged the fatal strike. The knife plunged into her shoulder. A searing pain shot through her body, but she had no time to scream. Hernando shouted her name and threw himself at Diana with all his strength, tackling her with his full weight. The 3 of them crashed to the floor in a chaotic struggle. Diana clawed at Hernando's face like a wild animal, while Mariana clutched her wound, trying to stay conscious. Hernando managed to grab Diana's wrist and twist it until the knife slipped from her hand. "Enough," Hernando growled, pinning her to the ground. Diana panted, her face flushed. "You'll never get rid of me," she spat. Hernando tightened his grip. "Call the police," he ordered Mariana. Mariana, pain throbbing in her arm, crawled to the house phone. She dialed with trembling fingers. "Help, she's here." The dispatcher asked for details, but Mariana could barely respond. Diana writhed under Hernando's weight, but she had no strength left. She went still, her breath ragged. "And now what, Hernando?" she whispered. "Are you just going to go back to your life as if I never existed?" Hernando didn't respond. There were no words to describe the hatred he felt. The police arrived minutes later. Diana didn't resist. When they cuffed her, she didn't scream or fight. She just stared at them with an empty expression. "Any last words?" Mariana asked, her voice hoarse. Diana slowly turned her head. "We'll see each other again, sister." The officers dragged her out of the house. Hernando picked Sophia up in his arms and kissed her head. Mariana closed her eyes in exhaustion. "It's over," she whispered. But deep down, she knew the shadows of the past never truly disappear. What did you think of this story? Let us know in the comments. What would you do in a similar situation? We invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends or family as a sign of support. This motivates us to keep uploading exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next incredible narrative that's about to appear on your screen. We truly appreciate having you here with us. You can click on the links appearing on your screen right now. We have an exclusive selection of captivating stories and guaranteed entertainment just for you. See you in the next video. Take care.